Cloudwater Small Pale Ale.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. It doesn't matter whether the sun is over the yard arm, because this is a low ABV pale ale from Cloudwater. Now, Cloudwater, of course, everyone knows them, everyone's heard of them. They are the craft brew innovators from up north in Manchester. And I've tried quite a few of their beers. A lot of them have been outstanding, really good. I was disappointed in the Pilsner. I'm not going to keep going over that because I think I've made my point about that. But everything else was pretty good by them, and I like what they do. I like their ethics, and I like what they produce. My only criticism is they do so much beer. They do a hell of a lot. They've discontinued a lot, almost as much as Brewdog, and Brewdog have done that as well. And you find that with a lot of craft brewers. They'll do limited batches of stuff and limited collaborations. I'm not knocking it, I'm just saying it's hard to, if you really do like one that they're doing and then you find it's been discontinued, that's a bit of a disappointment. But I suppose if you've tasted it, then it's better than a kick up the arse. But that's, as I said, that's only criticism. Everything else they do is really good. And then I picked up this stuff off the website, the Cloudwater website, which are offering for key workers. They're offering a good discount, which I think is a brilliant gesture. That is another reason I like them, and I qualify as a key worker. Don't ask me how, but I do, and I took advantage of that and I bought a few Cloudwater beers. But this is 2.8, 2.5, not 2.8. It's a low ABV pale ale. Now, I want to quickly discuss ABV. All right, a lot of people think, and there is some truth in it as well, and they think it rightly so, is because what they think is ABV affects the taste of the beer. Of course it does. The more malt or the more fermentable sugar you put into a beer, the more the alcohol is going to be prominent in it, or the higher the ABV. Now, of course, that is going to affect the flavour, the more sugar that goes in there, because not all the sugar ferments, and you do sometimes end up with especially with them high ABV beers, you end up with sometimes like a sweet, almost treacly like texture to it. You find it in the doubles, in the Doppelbocks, in the barley wines, etc., etc. You do get the high alcohol, sometimes spirit alcohol content, but you also get the sweetness with it too, and of course that comes from the sugar, so it does affect the flavour. And doing a low ABV beer like this, the challenge is to create flavour, because you're obviously, well, let me just explain about ABV, how it works, okay? ABV means alcohol by volume, okay? So how is that measured? Well, it's measured by the original gravity of the wort before it's boiled, okay? And that's done with a hydrometer. So they plop the hydrometer in there, and then they take the reading, and that's your density. What it's measuring is the density of the water, or the viscosity. If you know anything about engines, engine oil has got, some people call it weights, but it's not engine weight. It's basically the viscosity of the oil, which means the thickness of it, or the density of it. So what this hydrometer is doing, it's checking the density of the wort before the boil and the fermentation. So what happens is, and that's called the original gravity. So if you hear beers, they have their original gravity, or then, they have other terms for it, but original gravity is the most common one. And that's what it is. That's the viscosity of the wort before it's boiled, as I said. After the fermentation process, they plop the hydrometer in there again. They measure what's known as the final gravity, and then they deduce, well, they actually, how do they do it? I think they times it by, is it 131? And they convert that into the change in gravity, and that will give you your alcohol percentage by volume. So basically what they're doing is they're calculating the sugar loss from the original malt before it was boiled, and then what it's lost after the fermentation process. Science, bitch, as they say. And, you know, it's beyond my means. I've tried to break that down into the simplest terms so people can understand it. Everybody uses it, ABV. I see all the beer reviewers, you know, mentioning the ABV, but I think it's important to tell people how ABV is measured, how it's worked out, and what it actually means, alcohol by volume, you know, and that's what it means. I'm no scientist, don't get me wrong, it's just my understanding of what it is. I will say a quick word. I know I'm going a bit off topic here, but I want to get this out so people know about it. Non-alcoholic beer, okay? I don't review it on the channel for the simple reason I don't see the point. I don't drink non-alcoholic beer. I couldn't tell a good one from a bad one. And, you know, if you want to drink it, fine, crack on. I'm just not going to review it. I don't want to waste, I'm not saying I don't want to waste my money. I don't want to spend my money on non-alcoholic beer. I'm sure there's great ones out there. It's just I don't want to taste them. All right? But the way the alcohol is removed from non-alcoholic beer will definitely affect the flavour. Now, there's two ways of doing it. Number one, you can boil it. Boiling, of course, you know, if anybody's ever cooked here and added wine to a meal or whatever, or added wine to the ingredients when they're cooking, or even beer as well, if you're doing a steak and ale pie or something like that, when you fry that up or you cook it, you're boiling off the alcohol. That's what, and you're just left with a flavour, all right? Or you can filter it out as well. I'm not quite sure how they filter it out, but taking the alcohol out, I'm sure, well, it will affect the flavour. Boiling will affect the flavour as well. And one last word, there is always a little strain of alcohol in non-alcoholic beer. It may be 0.5%, but you'll never ever get 0%. Whether it is 0.5, you know, that's usually what it's measured at. It could be less, it could be a tiny bit more. But it's just important to know that, you know, if you're alcohol dependent or you're recovering alcoholic, don't drink non-alcoholic beer because there are traces of it. I'm sure they'd tell you that in meetings or whatever. But anyway, that's the final word I'm going to say about this. And the only reason I'm saying it is because this is 2.5, and, you know, I want to explain that ABV actually does affect the flavour of beer. Good. Now let's investigate the beer. This is a 440ml can. It's 2.5%, as I said, and here's the can. Typical Cloudwater, you know, sunburst can. They do that on a lot of their beers. I'll just read out. So yeah, see, I read the size of this can before I did this review, and I'm going to wag my finger at Cloudwater about this, and I'll tell you why. Okay, this beer combines our love of British beer heritage. Right, I'm going to stop there, right, and now I'm going to immediately go down to the tasting notes. It's got aroma and tasting notes. No brew sheet, unfortunately. I can't tell you what hops are in here, but what it's got aroma and flavour. Juicy tangerine and zesty grapefruit, soft white peach and resinous hop notes. Okay, I go to the aftertaste. Lingering juicy orange and peach with a light peppery bitterness. Right, I'm just going to go over the first sentence from that description again. It says, this beer combines our love of British beer heritage. Right, now, name me one traditional British beer that description fits. Because I can't. That's miffed me slightly. You know what I'm like with my British beers. I do like to sort of promote them because no one else is doing it. And that is a bit of a contradiction, but it's a minor contradiction. As I always say, it's about the beer, right? Yeah, this beer combines our love of British beer heritage and the technical challenges of brewing lower strength beer that's big bodied and full flavoured. This is a great choice for times when you're taking it easy but still want big hoppy hit from a dry hopping rate most commonly seen in much stronger beers. Right, so all I know is this is dry hopped. And I'm assuming from that description there's a lot of American hops in there. So you're not combining your love for British beer heritage. If you really did have a love for that, you'd be brewing bitters, ales and traditional British IPAs. That's just me, minor gripe, but I will have my say. Let's get this open and see what's going on. Right, now I'm seriously considering not sniffing stuff out of a can and just getting it in the glass. I think you get more aromas out of the glass with certain beers. Wow, I've just been hit by a load of pine. God, that is really strong, but I wouldn't have expected anything less from Cloudwater. This is what they do, and they do it really well. Wow, there is just, yeah. I'll tell you something, them tasting notes are bang on. The pine on this, it's almost like a Christmas tree, just wafting up. And there's quite a lot of sweet stone fruit in that. Yeah, I will say that is a pretty accurate description of it. Let's get the rest of the beer into here. Of course, these Teku glasses are great for aromas, and the way they're shaped, you do get a really good indication of what the beer is going to taste like from the aroma. That is super hazy, as they said, one finger white head. I'm going to try and give this a little bit of an aggressive pour. So, as there. Now imagine there's oats in this as well. If they're, because of the low ABV, they're just going to pump it full of, when I say pump it full of adjuncts, they're going to add adjuncts to give it more body. And of course oats do that by the bucket load, possibly even wheat as well. I really wish there was a brew sheet with that, but here you go, can't have everything. Yeah, that's really good. That is a really nice smelling, I would say, American pale ale. It's not British, but let's give it a go. Cheers. And it isn't bad. It is not bad at all. Now you've got to remember this is 2.5%. So they've taken out the stuff, the malt. Malt gives it body. But they've obviously added some wheat and stuff like that to maximise the body that's in there. And to be honest, for such a low ABV beer, that has got a fair amount of body in it. I will give it that. There is a ton of pine in that, and it runs all the way through. You do get that pine from beginning to end, and it's quite nice. There is the undercurrent of the sweet stone fruit, like peach, mango is in there, and there's passion fruit in there as well. And all in all, it is not a bad effort. Yeah, that's really nice actually. For I can't, emphasise this point too much. It's rare you will get a beer that tasty and that full flavoured, full bodied as well, with such a low ABV. With that, I tried the Harvestone pale ale yesterday. That was more of a traditional British pale ale, very spicy, quite tasty. Didn't have the body, but it was okay. And I think that was 2.8%. So these low ABV beers, I mean, they might not be to everyone's taste, but they've definitely got their place. As I said before, if you want to do an all-day session and drinking this, if you've got the money to do it, then yeah, you're not going to get too out your nut. If got to go out for work in the morning or something like that, then these low ABV beers are fine. And this in particular, when you're drinking it, you don't feel like you're missing out, because it's packed full of flavour. As I said, all them nice tropical fruity notes, but the pine does stand out on this. There is a very vague and faint biscuit malt on the end of it, but that's just being layered over by that pine note. But all in all, and I'm drinking this cold, so I'm getting it as refreshing as possible, but you're still getting tons of flavour. So I think Cloudwater have done a really good job there, and I really like that. That is a good session American style pale ale. So what's the verdict on small pale? Yeah, it's really good. I do like this. The aroma and flavour, the body and the aftertaste notes on the back are pretty accurate. What isn't accurate is the first sentence in the description that says this beer combines our love of British beer heritage. I don't know what that means, but if you're trying to say this is like a traditional British pale ale, you could not be further from the truth. That is an American pale ale, and that's the second time Cloudwater have done that. They've done that with their Pilsner too. I'm coming back to that one. I'm never going to let that one go, am I? But it was nothing like a Pilsner. It was a good beer on its own merits, but they shouldn't have called it that. And this is a small pale ale. They don't say whether it's British or American on the front, to their credit, so I'm not going to fucking hammer them for that. But that first sentence, it irks me a little bit, but I'm not going to let that bother me. All things considered, this is a really nice, tasty, full of flavour, American style pale ale with low ABV, which means you can session it or you can have a few, even if you don't want to get out your nut, you've got to get up for work. It's really good, and it's full of flavour, and you don't feel like you're missing out drinking this. Really like it. Very good. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I like it that much. That is a really nice attempt at a low ABV American pale ale, and Cloudwater again have come up trumps. Well done. 9 out of 10 recommended. And remember, beer is working class champagne.